Hey kids, anybody out there? Anybody watching so far? I'll start everything once I see a few people coming on. Diesel's in his usual spot. Let's see what we got on here. Let's see. Okay, so I got 3 of you on so far. Well, 1 second. Let me see if I can find something on here. Okay. Hey, Henry. So it looks like I got 4 of you. There's my mother-in-law. Hey, Sally. Okay, so what we're going to do today, guys, which I'm sure the majority of you have had it, is I'm going to make my gravy and my meatballs. And then over here I have some seasoned sausage and ribs that are actually going to go in the oven that we're actually going to add to this gravy once it starts. So I'm going to bring it over here. So here I just have some sweet Italian sausage, which I cut in half, and the actual ribs that are actually cut in half as well. And they're basically salt and peppered, some olive oil. We also added a little bit of Italian seasoning. I had the, hey Mary Jo, I have the oven on 400. So we're going to put in the sausage and the ribs. You can get them on the bone if you want. But these I didn't get the bone on these. It's easier that way. So I'm going to put these in the oven. And I'm going to put them in at 400 for about 10 minutes because then I'll flip them. And then in here, I have my meat for my meatballs. So my mom and my grandma used to do beef, pork, and veal. And over the past couple years, my mom has stopped using the veal. Hey, Adrian, my mom has stopped using the veal because it does end up, it can get tough, believe it or not, in the meatballs. This reminded me of our Sundays together on High Street, yes. I remember that. So now we're just doing ground pork and ground pork and ground beef. I did 80% lean on there. And over here, we're going to add this at the end too. This is just basic white bread that I cut the crust off of. My mom does that too. She cubes it and adds the wet bread at the end. I don't know, it keeps it moist for some reason. Never knew the reason why. I have 2 eggs here that I beat. I did a lot of prep early. So I have a half of a large onion, which I diced very fine. That's going to go into the meat as well. Fresh parsley, and then we'll add salt and pepper, all that fun stuff. And of course, freshly grated cheese, that's most important. So I'm going to add in the egg. Okay. And then the onions. Some people use leeks. I've used leeks before. But, you know, most of the times I use onions. So that, I'm only going to use half of this parsley. Because the rest I'm actually going to put in the gravy once I add the basil to that. I got to add garlic too. The cheese, I just do like 2 little handfuls like that. Throw that in. Let me get my peen from my shoulder here. Garlic. So what we're going to do is I'm going to get this mixed, and then I'm actually going to start the actual sauce, and then we'll come back and make the meatballs. So I'm just putting like a half a teaspoon of garlic in there. For this, you can add just regular salt, and not a lot because you're going to have the salt from the cheese. And then cracked pepper, and of course, you know, Frank Sinatra playing in the background. So cracked pepper. And on the stove, actually, I have the pan for the meatballs. There's oil starting to heat up on there, and then I have the big monster pot for the actual gravy. So now we're going to go over here. Okay. So that's the oil for the meatballs. I have it on low, and then there's the big pot for the sauce. So for now, this was the leeks that I had told you about. So I'm adding the leeks to the oil for the gravy. So that's going. And then we're going to need more garlic. Like a teaspoon of garlic. And just use the minced garlic. It's fine. That's all you really need. So we're going to let that start. I'm going to pump that up a little bit and let that start to saute. And I have it on like 2 because you obviously don't want to burn the garlic. That's most important. The oil for the meatballs is going. And then the pork and the sausage is already starting to, you know, smell good. Okay, so over here, we've got, so I have whole peeled tomatoes, okay? I have puree and I have crushed tomatoes and tomato paste. So normally I use the big ones of these, which are like 29. They were out of them. So I basically have 4 of the 14.5 ounce. And then I had the large ones of the crushed and the puree. So we'll do that. Perfect. Right in front of the Ninja. So my mom actually, the whole tomatoes she does with her hands. Well, she used to. Now she actually just puts them in the blender. So I'm dumping them in there. All 4 cans with the juice. Because it's basically doing the same thing. It's just, it's quicker. And it doesn't make a mess over everything. So, see, they're all in there now. So my little trusty Ninja. Best invention in the world. My mother-in-law Sally bought this for us. Probably 4 or 5 years ago. And it's the best thing ever. So I'm just going to basically run this on like 1. For literally, you know, less than 10 seconds. Because that's going to go in to the gravy. So this is all cooking so you guys can see. That's the garlic and the leeks. And then the oil is still over here. So let's go back over here now. I like the towel on the shoulder. Yes, old school towel on the shoulder. So now I'm going to take these breadcrumbs, and it's actually, you know, fresh bread. So I'm going to throw that on top there. And just the bowl that you had the eggs in, I'm going to add just a little bit of water. Just to pour on top so the bread actually gets soft too. And then here's the fun part. You just mix it all together. Make sure you take your jewelry off, especially if your rings are loose, because I've made that mistake before too. Where I actually lost a ring inside the meat. I think I was making a meatloaf at the time. But I obviously realized it before I actually put it in the oven. And you should have this kind of texture where it actually sticks to your hands. And basically you're just going to keep doing this until it's all mixed, and you can smell it at this point, that everything's working. Let me rinse my hands real fast so I can go stir on this garlic. Almost done. Okay. So this is starting to get cooked, so I'm going to add in, actually, we're going to bring you back over here. We'll bring you back over here in front of my trusty Nespresso maker. So I'm going to add in the whole peeled tomatoes, which I did in the Blender Ninja, whatever. So that's going in there. Hey, Anita. So that's the first step. That's going in there. Then the crushed tomatoes, 1 can. Then the puree. Tomato paste we're going to add. Just 1 small can of tomato paste. Or, you know, they have the kind that comes in the actual tube, too. That's also very good. But the key is, once that's open, even though it does, you know, seal back up, it does tend to get a little funky. So now, there's a couple steps to this. I'm going to get this mixed. I might have to add actually another can of crushed tomatoes, but this is a bigger pot than usual because I have the meatballs, the sausage, and the ribs, which we're going to check that in a couple seconds too. So I add 1 to 2 cans of water, and warm water, not cold water. It kind of, because the tomato paste is so thick. Actually, I think 1 might do it for now. Yeah, so that'll get going. I think I'm going to add 1 more can of crushed tomatoes. Hold on. Perfect. Last can of crushed tomatoes. So we'll add that. So how's everybody doing up there? Wherever you guys are. Most of you guys, I think, are from the north. Hey, Aunt Cindy. Avery's Aunt is on there. So that 2nd can of crushed tomatoes I'll add. And I'm going to add just a half a can of water to that. Put all this crap aside. Now, I'm going to add some salt. And don't feel like you have to be like, you know, inchy with the salt. That. Cracked pepper. I mean, you can do all this to taste, but just to start it off, I use, just to get it started. You can keep adding. I mean, you can add crushed red pepper to this too if you want the Fra Diavolo sauce. I mean, you can make it as spicy as you want. Italian seasoning. Same thing. You know, do a couple good shakes of that. Throw that in there, stir this up. And I know some people are like, oh, you shouldn't put sugar in your gravy. I do, I do put a little bit of it. These sausage and the ribs are actually getting pretty good. That oil's heating up for the meatballs. So I just add like 2 pinches of sugar. And then my other little secret, which I don't know if many of you do, pump this up to like 6. My big old restaurant size red wine, which has become my cooking wine. This is 3 liters, and it still smells good. This is Montepulciano, so you can do whatever you want, but I'm going to say a half a cup I put in there. It does give it a little bit of a kick, so mix that up. Then we have 2 more important ingredients which we're going to add. Because this is going to cook for like 3 hours, 4 hours. You know, that's the key to it, in my opinion. So let's go back over here. So once again, we have the meatball mixture pretty much already done. So next, Diesel, you have to move, buddy. Go lay down. So, like I said, the basil and the garden all died. So the only thing that has survived at this point, can you get locatelli there? Yes, which is actually this is a mixture of locatelli and Parmigiano cheese in there, which I always use. So the basil in the garden did not make it because even with our irrigation system and everything, and we build our garden, it's just the basil did not survive, but I can tell you right now, I can send each and every one of you enough rosemary and fresh oregano to last you for a year. I can tell you that. I planted 1 rosemary bush, which ended up making itself into another rosemary bush, which is crazy. My tomatoes have pretty much died. My peppers are at this point. Yes, it's 3 o'clock, but I'm having a glass of wine, so what? Fresh basil, you can actually just, chiffonade the basil. Like, doesn't have to be perfect, okay? That's going to go in the gravy. Has to be fresh basil. Bazanago. Okay. And that other half of that onion that we did for the meatballs, I actually cut that into chunks like this, because that actually is going to go into the gravy. My mom does that. She actually does a whole onion. She doesn't slice it, but I do, and you can pick it out if you want towards the end. So that's going to go in there as well. And then the key to it all, which I think, the cheese, same thing. I'll add 1 nice handful now, and the rest we'll do later. So we're going to mix this up. And you can, keep adding, taste it through, its cooking period. See, and it's nice and thick. Keep adding stuff through its cooking period. Keep adding stuff through the cooking period, spice-wise. So the oil for the meatballs, I'm going to pump that up to 2 at this point. Now, we're going to take a peek. And this is sizzling like crazy. So, we had the sausage and the pork, okay? I'm just going to flip these around because I'm going to put them back into the oven. But you're going to turn them on the opposite side, especially the sausage, because that's going to actually start to cook faster. on the one side. Like you can see, it's already browned, the sausage. So we're going to keep that still on 400. Actually, I'm going to turn it down to like 350. We're going to flip the sausage, and we're flipping the pork. And Diesel, get away from the oven, buddy. So that's going to go back in the oven. We're going to put that at 350 now for another, I'm going to say 10 minutes. And we'll start these meatballs. Okay. So, and this extra parsley we're going to add towards the end of the gravy cooking, because then it gets all funky and it loses its flavor. So, meatballs, so you guys can see. I mean, people use, you know, ice cream scoopers, whatever. So, hey, Jennifer Bacella. So, I mean, you can do them any size you want. I'm going to do, that's like golf ball size. I mean, sometimes, I have family members that make them literally like, they're like base, you know, like almost like a pool ball size. But I find that they get a little bit tough. So, and they don't have to be perfect. I mean, it's just, it's all going in the same chute. So that one's a little bit bigger than normal. And I make a lot of these. Like, there's about 4 pounds of meat here. Because what I'll do is, I'll cook them all, and I'll put half in the gravy, and that's the timer for the, we're good. I put half in the gravy, and then what I do is the other half, I actually freeze without sauce on them. But then I also do containers of gravy with meatballs and sausage, so, you know, if you just want a night that you don't really have to cook, just defrost it, or if you're going to have friends over, and so on and so forth. So, we're at least going to get, this is probably going to make about, probably 30 meatballs. Because you can always have meatballs. This is probably, I'm probably making about 30 meatballs here. And like I said, they're like about golf ball size. But I probably have enough gravy in there for, you know, there's going to be enough gravy in there for a while. And like I said, the meatballs, they don't have to be perfect. You know, some can be a little bit larger than others. You just don't want them one golf ball size and then one the size of a pool ball. So I can see the oil for the... And some people actually bake the meatballs. I've done that too before. But I'm so used to, you know, my mom and my aunts and my grandmother all doing them on the actual stove. I don't know why, but it just... To me, you know, that's just how it's always been, and that's how I did it. So, I'm going to say right in 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14... Yeah, I'm probably going to have 30 meatballs. So, I'm going to do 2 more, and I'm going to drop these in that oil, and I'm going to stir the sauce, because then we're going to add, I call it sauce, gravy, whatever. I mean, gravy, I've always called it, it's always been called gravy in my house, but sauce doesn't have meat, gravy has meat. Let me wash my hands. I may not go back to work and just keep cooking every day. Avery would love that. And just an update on him. Avery is now in Anchorage, Alaska. For those of you that don't know him. Family members and good friends know. Avery is U.S. Air Force, but he's pretty much retired. But he flies for a company called Atlas Airlines. And it's all cargo, so he's their head load master. So he's flies all over the world. He's going about 20 days a week. 20 days a month. But he's been dealing with all of this stuff that's going on too. But he is safe and sound. Now he's in Anchorage, Alaska. He is going to China, but he does not, it's not commercial. So he literally, makes sure that the plane is loaded properly, it weights, balances, and then he heads off. If he does have to stay, he literally is chauffeured from the hangar. Hold on. He's chauffeured from the hangar into a car, into a hotel, and that's it. So right now he's in Anchorage, Alaska. He's going to be there until... little hot oil. He's going to be there until, I think he said April 9th. And then he's going back to Chicago, and then it starts all over again. So he actually probably won't be home until the middle of May, is what he's saying, because they said if he does, he works 20 days on, 10 days off. So if he comes home, he's got to be quarantined, they said, for 14 days before he can fly again. So he said it's pointless. So he's just flying straight through, and, thank God he's still working, which is awesome. But that's pretty much about this on that end. But he's being very safe. I mean, he says they literally wash the plane down every time he gets on, gets off, unloads, all that fun stuff. So let me pull these, actually I'm going to bring these meatballs over. Hold on one second. So here's what the meatballs look like. And like I said, they're about golf ball size. So don't make it too hot. I mean, right now it's on 2, just to get them in there. Like, your second batch is actually going to cook faster because the oil's been cooking for so long. So I'm going to give you a recap on the meatball mixture. So I don't use beef, pork, and veal, which I used to use. My mother did it the same way, but the veal sometimes ends up getting tough and makes the meatballs tough. So I stopped using that, and I'm just using pork and beef like my mom did, 20% lean. So I'm going to pump the meatballs up to about 4. We have the sausage and the ribs in the oven. I'm going to pull them out in a couple minutes. So I'm trying to think what else I'm going to add. Actually, I'm going to add this parsley now. At least half of what's left. Because there's already basil in there, but as it cooks over the hours, I taste it constantly. I adjust the flavor. I'll add more basil. I'll do whatever. But right now, I have it on 4 right now till I add the meatballs. Now, the meatballs are probably going to cook for about, I'm going to say like 5 to 6 minutes on each side. Then I test them. Of course, I have to eat them before I put them in the thing. So I'm going to test those once they're cooked, and then I'll continue with the rest of them. So let's continue making the rest of these meatballs, just so they're done, because then we can put them right in after these cook. What time is dinner? John, dinner is any time. Come over if you want. John is a very good friend of ours. He's also my manager at work. And, we're still not working at this point. Still don't know what's going on there. So is everyone still working, or has anyone been laid off, or have they closed you guys down? Let's see. Hey, Claude, I see you're watching. How's business? I think I saw that you just sold a nice property the other day on Facebook. Dory's working from home. Gabby's working from home. I need a job. John, you don't need a job. You own your job. How are you and Tammy doing? Keith Styles. Hey, Keith, how are you? Are you flying, buddy, or what? Oh, they closed the club, Michael? I figured that was going to happen. Okay, the meatballs are sizzling. I can hear them. And like Rachel Ray always says, I wish there was smell-o-vision. Because you should smell how this stuff is going. Okay, yeah. So the first batch made 16 meatballs. We're probably going to get about the same out of this. Oh, so Keith, you're off for the month too. Okay. Yeah, because like I said, saying Avery's still flying because he's doing all cargo, so they haven't grounded him. I know his sister who works for United has been there for like 20-some years. She's down to part-time. But she's high up there, so she's not going to lose her position. I wish I knew how to cook. John, you know how to cook. You're Italian. Tommy knows how to cook, too. Hold on 1 second. I gotta pull out this, the ribs and the sausage, because the timer's going off. And the meatballs are bubbling. Okay. See, guys, there's the sausage and the pork. So I'm going to put this over here next to the gravy that's going on the stove, because we're going to drop that in. Meatballs are going, so I'm going to turn them in a couple minutes. I boiled water once and made instant oatmeal. You're too funny. So the first batch, like I was saying, where's Avery? Aunt Mary, Avery's in, that's my Aunt Mary Bacella on there. Avery is in Alaska right now. He's gone to China, but he's very careful. It's not commercial, as you know, so he's not going anywhere. He's literally locked in his hotel now until he leaves for, he's going to Alaska, then China, just literally drops a load off in China, then he's going to Chicago for a little while. We all did like a FaceTime thing with him. It's called this thing called Zoom. We did that last night. But he's good. I mean, he's hanging in there. He's working full time, so thank God. I mean, my store's closed until, further notice at this point. Who's going to eat all this food? I know. Aunt Mary, you know us. You know how we cook. I don't know. I literally made it. This made 32 meatballs. So I'll freeze some, and then I'll have it, and I'll probably do some drive-bys to friends and drop some off. Let me wash my hands. So there's the second set of meatballs. So let's go flip this first set. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add, can y'all see? Oh, that's awfully dark there. Okay. Diesel, get away. And of course, Diesel's right at my feet. Everyone say hi to Diesel. Diesel's like, Daddy, what are you cooking? I want some. So let's flip these meatballs. And then we'll throw the, see, now they're getting nice and browned on one side. So I flip them halfway through. And then we'll cook them another, 5 to 7 minutes on the other side. The gravy's bubbling. And everybody's stove is different. Everybody's burner is different. So you can always, move the meatballs around in different positions, which I do because sometimes it's, always the outer layer doesn't cook as fast as the inner layer. So we flip those. So they're still on 4, so they're going. Now we're going to add the, I'll move you this way, so you guys can see. So now I'm going to add, this is all the sausage and the pork ribs without the bone. You can get them with the bone. I did them without the bone. That's all going under the gravy. And then we're going to take a peek at this gravy. And Mary, do you put sugar in your gravy? I can't remember if you do or not. I've started to recently. So we're mixing that up. It's getting nice and thick. So we'll give you a little... So that's the gravy there. I mean, you can see. I mean, it's getting thick already. And this is going to cook for a good 2 to 3 hours. And I cook it on... Like, right now it's on 4. So I'm going to turn off this oven. So that's off. So the meatballs are going in here. So they're going for like another 5 minutes or so. This gravy, I'm actually going to just do a little sample taste of that. Probably not going to taste like much because it hasn't been cooking that long. It's good though. Rayan, I have some... Oh, Rayan has some in the freezer. Yeah, I do. I freeze a lot of it. I tend to make... I'm going to put more basil in that. Or as, everybody would say basil noodle. I'm going to put more of that in the actual gravy. And I'm probably going to add a little more salt. Because I added more tomatoes and stuff. Because I'm making a bigger pot this time. But like I said, I'll probably do some drive-bys to friends tomorrow and say, come out and get dinner. It's hard cooking for, one person all the time. Not all the time, but, I can never cook for one person. I always make enough for 4 people. The meatballs are like sizzling. If you guys can... They're like really going. So I'm going to give them a couple more minutes. I'm going to pull them off. And then what I'll do is I'll take the oil out and then I'll eat 1 or 2 or 12, whatever. I'm just adding a little more salt to the gravy and a little more Italian seasoning. Besides the fresh parsley and basil that's in there. Okay. Okay. Chicky sauce, not grabby. Chicky sauce. You are too funny. Sometimes, so is that how everybody else is doing okay and not going crazy, being locked in the house? South Florida's a little crazy. They're, my people across the street were having a party last night. There had to be at least 10 or 15 cars in the driveway, which was driving me crazy that they were doing that. But people just don't seem to care. You're cooking for 40. Actually, I probably could feed 20 people with this, with all the gravy and the meatballs and all that. Yeah, I probably could feed 20 people. Easy. Okay. So I'm just turning these meatballs real fast because they're about to come off. And the pork ribs and the sausage is actually in the gravy now. Yeah, that's pretty much self-isolating is getting to me. I know, it's driving me crazy too. I told Avery, I said, you're going to come home to a totally different house. I've already started changing things. I think I'm going to paint the master bathroom this week. Everything else that we moved in, I mean, the house is new, but we still painted when we moved in. But the master bathroom I'm going to paint. But I've done a lot of changes in the house in the past couple weeks. I cleaned out cabinets. I found like 3 and 4 and 5 of one spice, and do you ship? My mother-in-law wants me to ship her. Mom, if I could ship you Gravy, I would. I would. I could probably actually dry ice it, but who knows? My mother-in-law Sally is online now too, so she's had my gravy numerous times. Yeah, but I've done a lot around the house recently. I organized cabinets and threw out all this extra stuff that we had 2 and 3 and 4 of. I did the closets, so I'm trying to keep myself busy and not go crazy. Let me come over and take these meatballs off and put the other ones on. So what I'm going to do is another plate. Paper towel on the bottom. I'm going to put those right there for now. This just gets all the, the extra grease off of them. So I'm going to say they're about, okay, so if this was a burger or whatever at this point, you're at about a medium right now to mid-well. So they're still a little pink, so you can actually eat them. They're still going to cook themselves for a couple seconds while they're sitting here. And now the second batch is actually going to cook faster because the oil's so hot. So I'm just going to pat them down. And then we're going to taste test in a couple seconds. And then, of course, Diesel's going to get one. Those can go there. Listen to that oil sizzling. And that's on 3. So that tells you how hot this oil is at this point. So at this point, use your tongs or your fork to put these meatballs in, because you really don't want to. Hence all the burn marks I have on my arms from oil and ovens. Yeah, so this literally made 32 meatballs. So that was like, it was almost 4 pounds. So like 2 pounds of ground pork and 2 pounds of ground beef. And you guys can recap this and watch it and, see how everything was made. Do you try to regular olive oil? No, well, I actually do regular vegetable oil with the meatballs and a little bit of olive oil. Not a lot, because, olive oil can have that funky taste to it sometimes. This cleanup is the worst part of this, guys, trust me. Cleanup is the worst. Thank God I have 2 sinks. Now when I'm doing the gravy itself, that's all olive oil. There's no regular vegetable oil with that. It's olive oil to saute the garlic and the leeks. Okay, self-isolating. So does anybody have any requests that they want me to do over the next couple weeks? Because I have a feeling that I'm going to be home for at least another 3 to 4 weeks. So if anyone has any requests, I can do that. Our freezer is full. Avery made sure of that before I left and while he was gone. So I'm pretty stocked up. Just the funny thing is I'm going through so much produce because, I worked full time. So, I very rarely, made like a full meal when I came home from work. Ossobuco, I know. That's so hard. I mean, I'll try the ossobuco. It's actually, it's not hard. It's just, it's time consuming because it's just braising the beef. But I can try it. I mean, I have no issue with that. I can probably do fish one night. So we're going to cut into one of these meatballs. And then we're going to eat it. So yeah, so it's like a mid-well. So we're going to eat this. Oh my God. Diesel, come here, buddy. Diesel. Come here. Over here. Sit. Sit. You want to see this monster? Watch it. Look. Sit. Sit. Good boy. That's his treat for the day. He loves his meatballs. So now what I'll do is I'm going to drop, actually I think I'm going to put all of these meatballs in here. And I will, the second batch I'm probably going to freeze. And you can, like I was saying before, I'll freeze like one container of just the gravy. Then I'll do a container of, enough for 2 to 3 people of the meat and the gravy. And then I'll just do one container of extra meatballs cooked, no sauce at all. And basically you cook them, you're going to layer them in like a flat Tupperware, and then a layer of wax paper, and then so on and so forth. Because you don't always have to do, if you have just the regular meatballs, I mean, I make a mean Swedish meatball sauce too. So, this way, you can do that, or you can do the meatballs if you want to do an Alfredo sauce, if you want to do, I mean, you can actually do like an Asian style glaze. So this way you don't limit yourself to just having meatballs and gravy. So this is going to cook. See, now that onion that I was talking about, it's still in the whole pieces, but it's going to give that flavor. So, it's going to have that flavor in the sauce. So this is going to cook for a good 2 hours. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to sign off for a little bit. I'm going to come back on around, let's say 5:30, 6 o'clock. And I'm probably, we'll cook some pasta, and then I'll have a salad and do all that. And I actually have to make more of my homemade dressing because I ran out. I made that at the beginning of the week. So then you guys can see how I do that too. It's very simple. It's very good. That's a staple in our house as well. I'm going to flip these meatballs again. See, now these are cooking twice as fast. So one side's already done like after like less than 5 minutes. Yeah, so I'll make my homemade balsamic vinaigrette. We'll do that. Maybe actually, you know what, this time we'll actually do it in the blender. You know how we did it the last time and I just did it where I just did it with the whisk? I'm going to do it in the blender because it's actually going to make it thicker. I need a good salad juice. Okay, perfect. Dana, I'm going to give you the easiest. Hey, Paula, I'm just about to sign off. I was making gravy and meatballs. If you want to recap, you obviously know how to make gravy and meatballs, Paula. But what I'll do is, when I come back on, I'll make that balsamic vinaigrette while the pasta's cooking, Dinah, so you can see it. It's literally, it's 4 ingredients, 5 at the most. It's literally spices and oil and vinegar, and it's done. But I am going to add a little bit of twist to it this time when I make it. And you'll see what that is when I sign back on. But let me just give you guys a quick peek here. So this is the second batch of meatballs, so 32 in total. Look, Diesel's waiting for his... Say hi, Aunt Paula. Paul is Diesel's buddy. So he's waiting for his second meatball. So we got the meatballs here, and we got the gravy. This literally is this is enough gravy for probably 20 people. And it literally is like thickening up and bubbling. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to... No, Paul, you can just go back and recap. I'm going to come back on around 6 o'clock and make my... I know, Gabby, he's adorable. He's a little monster. I think he's human. He thinks he's human. Look at it. He's about 7. Look, he's just looking for food. He's 7. He's, thank God for him right now, because otherwise, look, he is like at Daddy's apron strings. Look, Diesel, there's nothing. He's literally licking at the steam coming off of the gravy. He's too... You gonna sit now? Okay. Here, we'll give them a show real fast, okay? Okay. Can you guys see that? Is there enough light there? Here. Can you see? Okay. Stay. Fix your ear. Stay. 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 No. Okay. Sit. Come here. Sit. Sit. Give Daddy high five. High five. Give Daddy high five. No, other paw. Give Daddy high... Sit. High five. High five. Good boy. Yeah. I know he's not. Those eyes. I know those eyes kill me every time. He literally is... Like I said, he thinks he's human. I think he's human too. No, he's a good boy. And he's on my nice clean floor. Usually he takes the bone and eats it on the dining room rug. But the floor, I just polished them, so it's, yeah. I polished, you believe that, Paula? I polished the floors. That's how bored I've been. So they were kind of slippery, so it was kind of slipping and sliding around. So I'm going to sign off for now. I'll pop on back around 6, and I'll make the balsamic vinaigrette dressing, and I'll do some pasta, and we will go from there. So I'll see you guys around 6. Love you. Ciao, ciao.